Hey, g'day guys, it's Adam from VideoShowMeHow, and in this video we're going to be running through how to install and or replace a fan clutch. Let's get started. Before we do, as always, a massive welcome back to the existing subscribers of the channel. I hope you're having a tip-top day. If you are keen to support the channel and check out any new videos that are coming along, be sure to hit the old subscribe button down here, click the old bell, and that way you're notified as soon as more content comes out on the channel. So clutch fans, they're a pretty cool thing, and they're ultimately responsible for the majority of the cooling of your engine. So today we're going to run through how to replace one of these when it has gone bad, because over time these will go bad and there really is no alternative other than to get in there and replace it. So how do you tell if your clutch fan is kaput? There really are a couple of real telltale signs, and the first one of course starts with your engine appearing to start to overheat out of nowhere. Everything will be fine, no problem. Then you'll just notice that gauge just starting to creep in a territory where you haven't really seen it before, and that's normally the first sort of indicator for you to start looking a little deeper. There really are two things you can then test once that happens to discover whether this guy is going bad. The first way is after you've gone for a long drive. You might be full driving if you're driving a full drive, but you know the engine is hot, and it should be in the scenario where this guy is almost fully engaged and really powering away. What you want to do is pop the bonnet or the hood and have a look at the engine fan itself. If this guy is working effectively, it should be almost fully engaged, meaning that the fan itself is going to be moving at close to full RPM, same as the engine itself. So you should be able to hear the fan sucking the air through, and obviously not be able to see the blades, that sort of stuff. If you see the fan, it's just sort of meandering along, barely spinning at all, that's normally a pretty good sign that this is flogged out. The second way to tell if this guy is bad is with a spin test. So with the engine cold, so if the car hasn't been started and it's basically at shed temperature, you want to start the engine, let it run, not for very long though, you don't want it to get too hot, but basically then shut the engine down. You want to do that with the hood or the bonnet up so you can see the fan when you start the vehicle. When you start the car, or on this side depending on where you are, you want to be able to see the fan turning, shut the engine down, and then observe the fan. If the fan continually spins, you know you've got a fan clutch that is either on the way out or is already gone ski. This guy should really only spin for another couple of seconds and then stop. Now we're going to run through the full replace and install for one of these guys. We're working on the Jeep JK today. This is an 08. It is a turbo diesel as well. This is going to be very similar to whatever vehicle that you are working on. Step one is to pop the hood and get access to the engine bay. So we need to remove the things that are in the way, which basically means we need to remove the airbox itself. If you're rolling with a snorkel, there's going to be a couple extra steps there, because if it's like this one is here, it's sort of part of the same unit with the amount of Sika and what have you that's holding that all together nice and waterproof. So taking that out as one unit, easiest way to do that really is just to remove these sensors here. There is a band there that you want to just remove, so remove this guy, take all this out as one unit. We also need to remove the washer bottle. This is pretty easy. There is a bolt there. Other than that, there's a little slot, so you just got to pull it up and out. Outside of that, it's just this little radiator cover here, so we need to remove that as well to give us some access to the shroud bolts. That one's pretty straightforward. It's literally just clipped into place with a couple of these little guys. So there's 4 of them, so you just want to get underneath those and remove that as well. By the way guys, if you haven't got one of these little tools that removes those clips, they are the best thing ever. I struggled with a flathead screwdriver for years until I got one of these. If you're interested in those, there's a bunch of links in the description that have all the bits and bobs that I use and where you can buy them. Right, so with that out of the way, you can see we can access our reasonably grimy radiator. We're probably going to have to do a video of replacing that one as well at some point. So from here, once that's in the way, you can see we can start seeing access to the shroud itself. So on to removing the water bottle. Now once you've removed that bolt there is no others, so don't go looking for them. It's a little bit tricky to get out. Just be aware that if it's full as, water's going to go everywhere. Basically, you can see down in there, there's the little motor that runs the pump, the little sort of inline pump, I guess you could call it, but that's what scoots all the water up to your windshield. And if you're super lucky, one that actually runs to the back. I don't know about you guys, but mine has never worked, so I've just got it blocked off. But basically, it is molded around your top rad hose if you're in a Wrangler, so it's just a matter of getting in there with two hands, splashing bloody water everywhere, but you get it out eventually. So once you've pulled it out to about that level, I'd recommend actually removing the inline pump. It should just pull out. Just be careful not to sort of damage anything. There we go. There's our water bloody going everywhere, so try and rip it out as soon as you can and take it somewhere where it can drain away. Once you got that out, it's just a matter of tucking this guy away sort of underneath something or other, just to keep him out of the way, just like that. Onto the airbox. Now there's a couple of sensors here that you really want to be removing. I normally just unplug these and leave them in the housing itself, so pretty sort of straightforward. Red clips, just pull up and remove, just like that. Same story on the other side. There's a little push-in tab on the right-hand side there. So if you just compress that and pull backwards.
One eternity later.
A little bit like that. Pop these guys out of the way as well. And it's just about getting a flathead onto this band here, so you can remove the lid of the airbox. Once it's loose, it should pop off. Then you have 4 of these little clips. And then your whole lid should just come away, just like that. Once you've got the air filter out, you can see that, well, in this particular airbox, there's sicca everywhere. But basically, if you've never taken one of these out, there's a couple of little prongs that shoot down, and that's what's holding your airbox in. So there's no more bolts, so don't go looking for those. It's a matter of, if you have a snorkel, you want to remove the attachment up the top there, obviously, take those bolts out, and then this is just literally a pull up in one motion. Right, so with your airbox out of the way, we're on to the next step, and that really is to remove the actual fan shroud itself. Now, a couple of things to note here. Give this a little bit of a tidy. If there's too much schmutz about while you're in here, you might as well. The other thing you probably really want to do is grab yourself a rag and just jam him into your intake pipe there. You don't want to really be sucking any crap down in there, because your turbo lives down in there, and you really don't want a nut or something to fall in there. That will not be fun. The only other thing you really need to do is remove this connection. There is a little bolt just here, and then a little sensor that sits inside. So it's a matter of undoing this guy and wiggling him out. Just be careful with it. Other than that, there are 4 bolts for the actual shroud itself. And for me, this is probably the hardest part, because the ones down the bottom there are an absolute pitter to get to. So best of luck. I hope you value your knuckles, condolences, all of the above. All right, so once you got the 4 bolts off the fan shroud itself, it should be pretty loose. You should be able to sort of pull it out of the way. And you can see in there's our crappy schmutzed fan clutch that we're going to replace. Now, it's really difficult. You can't just take this out in one go. What I do from here is remove the actual electric fan here itself, so then you can pull sort of the whole lot up and out as one unit. So to do that, you'll see that there are a couple of extra little bolts, so just got to remove those and you should be able to pull the whole thing out. From here, once they're loose, just confirm that there's nothing in the way, you haven't routed any wires or anything like that, and then you want to try and jiggle this whole lot up and out as one unit. Just be careful of the actual fan itself down in there. You don't want to be damaging the blades. So just take your time and wiggle the sucker out. Alright, so the actual fan clutch itself. So your fan itself is connected to the back of the fan clutch. You can see that's what it's looking like there. So at the back here, there's our big bolt down in there. So at the back there's the 4 bolt holes and threads, those 4 nuts that you can just sort of see in under there. So from here I would recommend hitting the main nut here with some inox or WD-40 and the actual 4 bolts themselves, just so that they're as loose as possible, and then we need to remove this whole assembly. Alright, so once the penetrant has had some time to work behind the scenes there, the next step really is to jam this in place, get a big wrench at the back there on the nut itself, and spin him off. Now this is a lefty-loosey scenario for this type of clutch. The easiest way to work it out though for your own vehicle is to get a flathead screwdriver and then the part with the thread itself. And what you want to do is just put the flathead of the flathead screwdriver in and slowly spin the thread itself. And what you should be able to see, you got to be careful just to keep the screwdriver on the thread itself. You want to spin that around and then see which way that it's working, and if you're finding it's going to the bottom, that means the way that you're turning the thread is tightening, and if it starts rising to the top through the threads, it means it's loosening. So in this case, when we are spinning it this way, the flathead is going to the top, which means that lefty is loosey in this particular application. Nice easy way to check. So there's a few different ways for this bit. One, you can do it the proper way and actually buy a proper tool, which look a little bit like this. You can get them on eBay, on Amazon, all that sort of stuff. I'll have some links in the description below for you to go and check out. If you don't have one of those tools, or you're probably not doing this job all that often, there is some other ways. Basically what you're looking at doing is you need to lock up this section here, the actual clutch itself, behind here. Now on this design there are some little holes there, hence where that tool will work properly. But basically what you're doing is you want to stop that from turning, and then you want to get a big wrench. This is like 30 something mils, so you're probably going to use a multi-tool. You want to keep this guy from turning, and then you want to actually turn and loosen this particular nut. Easiest way is to get a big flathead screwdriver, ideally a bigger one than this if you have, but this is the largest I have there at the moment. And then in the holes in here, you just want to sort of jam him in there so that it's got some good purchase and you've got something to sort of leverage off. So just make sure you can get that in there. There we go, nice and tight, so that you've got a good grip against the actual clutch down in here itself. Now once you've got Big Bertha flathead in place, the next step is to grab your adjustable wrench here, and you want to get him on the actual thread of the whole shebang itself. From here, there's a couple of different ways to go. Some people will get a BFG and give the multi-wrench a good couple of whacks. Sometimes that's enough to loosen this whole thing. What you're wanting, this thing will just go bloop and it will come loose. Then you can just literally spin it and spin the whole thing off. So for me though, I like to use my big pole, which looks a little bit like this. So if you've got leverage, which rules the world, that's often the best way to go. So for me, I just sit that on there and then have at it. Alrighty, so here we have the full unit. The next step really is just to remove the fan component away from the actual fan clutch itself. To do that, we just have 4 bolts here, nice and easy. In this case, it is a 13 mil. So it's best to use the metal section inside here for any leverage, or just get an ugga-dugga and get on these guys that way. It's only going to take a couple of ugga-duggas to get that off, nice and easy. Now, Jeep have been very nice to us and actually put on the housing itself, engine side, as you can see there, which is very nice of them, because the last thing you'd want to do is put this on the wrong way, and you can imagine instead of spinning some nice fresh air in. If it was around this guy, around this way, you're going to be pushing that air straight back out, and that's not going to work for anyone. So worth though bearing in mind which side is which, and just keeping the orientation the same when you mount this onto your brand new clutch fan. And here we are, here's the old clutch fan. So this is a Hayden 2905 severe duty, made in the USA. This is quite a thick unit, and it blows a heck of a lot of air, let me tell you. This lasted a few years and has been reasonably good. For me though, I found that it's starting to be a little intermittent. Like right now, it's actually quite tight, which is what you'd expect, but it doesn't seem to stay that way. Sometimes it'll work really well, and others it will just basically free spin, as you saw earlier. So definitely on the way out. They do run out, so I'm not too stressed about that. I am going to give GMB a try though. This isn't a severe duty, this is only a heavy duty, so it should still do the job quite well. As you can see, quite a bit skinnier than the severe duty version. So interested to see how the GMB goes. As you can see there, it is a 920-2390. You can get these in a severe duty version as well. All severe duty means it's going to lock up a lot earlier, so that you're cooling the engine earlier in the sort of the heat cycle. So really keen to give the GMBs a go. These have pretty good reviews as well as the Haydens. Keen to give these a spin, see the difference between severe and heavy duty as well. 920-2390 is the model number. You can see in the links in the description. I've whacked down the bottom there where you can pick one of these up. Alright, so let's get this guy installed. It's pretty straightforward, guys. Just make sure that the bolt side of things is coming through, just like we disassembled. You want to put it in there just like that. Give this a bit of a clean. Make sure that the engine side is the correct way. So we can see here, engine side just there. And then it's just a matter about bolting this guy up. And it should come out with still plenty of space around the outside, ready to rock and roll to get put back in the Jeep. Now, one thing to note is it doesn't specifically call for any sort of Loctite. If you're a Loctite fiend, feel free to putting some Loctite on here. I would recommend not using the red, probably just go for the blue. Either that, or feel free to use some spring washers. In this case, GMB's done us a solid, and they've included some in the pack, so I'm just going to go ahead and use those. And there we go, all installed. Now, these don't need to be maniac level tight, they just need to be regular level tight. Don't go too overboard. But other than that, we're good to go here. You can see that it is ready to rock and roll. From here, we just need to put it back on the Jeep. Alrighty, so home stretch. It's now just a matter of reversing the previous steps. So starting off with putting this guy back on, it's a matter of putting this guy back on to the spindle and spinning it back on. And then just same process as before. When you get to this bit, is you want to lock down the clutch section here and tighten it right up. It doesn't have to be crazy tight, just enough that it's not coming off. All right, awesome work. We've got the fan clutch installed, a nice new one. Look how nice and shiny it is. Love new parts, a little bit of an obsession. But anyway, next step from here is we just got to sort of reverse all this part, which means whacking our electric fan and shroud back in here so our AC stays nice and cold. We then need to put our airbox back in place, connect up our tubes, install the water washer as well. So let's get started with that. Okay, cool. So we are all done. Great job. From here, it's just a matter of making sure everything's all attached. Make sure we're not leaking. You can fill your water bottle, making sure that the shroud's all on, making sure the airbox is all in, that our sensors are there, the electric fan connection is done. And from there, we're ready to fire this up and see how we go. When we do fire it up, what we're looking for is the fan itself. We should get a fair bit of spinning happening there. So what we're also looking for is when we shut it down, that should stop relatively quickly, if not straight away. It shouldn't really continue to spin on. So let's give it a test. All right, perfect. You can see that when we're starting the vehicle up, it's really kicking into gear and spinning away. I can feel the air, which is awesome. And the other plus is you can see that when we shut the engine down, those fan blades come to a stop pretty well straight away within a turn or two. So tip top, we are done. Well, I hope you found that video helpful, guys, and if you did, be sure to leave a like in the section below. Leave a comment, let me know how you go and what type of clutch fan that you've gone with, whether you've gone with a GMB as well, whether you went with a Hayden, how long they've lasted. Let's get some comments down there. Really interested to hear from you guys and hear how it's worked for you. To help support the growth of the channel, hit the old subscribe button, which should live somewhere right there. There's other videos here on the channel as well, and feel free to check them out. Share them with your mates if it might be helpful for them as well. I hope you have an amazing day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers, guys.